Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Pick Up and Play. My name is DJ Switch. I'm the DJ and MC for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. And today, my guest is Steven from the Tech Buzz Gaming. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to be a guest on Steven's show, and I had a great time. And so, of course, I had to invite him on my show and turn the tables, so to speak. We're going to get a chance to get into a conversation that is actually really important to me. Very often when I'm not on camera or not in front of a microphone, I get to have conversations with other creators about being a creator and sort of the reality of what that's like and how to navigate some of the more nuanced and interesting problems that arise when you choose to create something for public consumption or in a public space. And so my conversation today with Steven ended up kind of going down that road, and there were some really, I think, important things that came out of it, and I'm so excited to share it with you all. I really enjoyed myself with this one, and I hope that you will as well. Just as a reminder, I also have a Patreon available that supports this show directly, and by the way, all of my spiciest stuff goes on the Patreon. Patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX is the account, and a couple of weeks ago, I did an episode from SideQuest Games where I shared a little bit of Patreon content on that episode. And the Patreon content I shared was from John Riggs. Now, first of all, that was just the Patreon question for John. There's still an entire second half to that interview that only lives on Patreon because John Riggs and I talked for so long that I only posted the first half on YouTube. So there's another half to that show, and then the Patreon part that I shared on that episode a couple weeks ago. So do yourself a favor, definitely check that out if you get the opportunity to. But also, part of the reason why I chose to share that Patreon segment from John Riggs was because, frankly, it was one of the cleanest and one of the ones that I was most comfortable sharing on YouTube. There is some stuff on there that would absolutely get me in trouble on YouTube, and so that's why it's only ever going to live on Patreon. So if you want to see that stuff, go to patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX. Help me pay for some of the tools that I use to produce this show, and help support the show directly so that I can keep it going and keep it moving. That being said, there was one more quick thing I wanted to shout out. A big happy birthday to my friends at Retro Game Bar who just celebrated their 5th anniversary. The reason why the show is late getting out this week is because I had a very full weekend of events. I was at the Disc Golf Pro Tour on Friday. I was at the Retro Game Bar anniversary on Saturday. And I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I am very much still recovering. So a big happy birthday to my friends at the Retro Game Bar. And of course, my thank you to Vault 31 Bar and to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo for their help in making sure to continue that this show happens. In fact, we'll hear from our friends at Vault 31 Bar a little bit later on in the show. But for now, please allow me to share my interview with Steven from the Tech Buzz Gaming. Steven, thank you very much for hanging out today, man. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, Jeff, appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, of course. I had a great time on your show last week, and I know that this, we're recording this. It's probably going to take about a week and a half for this to actually come out because I've got another episode ahead of yours. But I definitely wanted to sit down and flip the interview a little bit, kind of put you in the hot seat, find out a little bit more about you, your relationship with gaming, a little bit about your relationship with some of the other guests you've had on the podcast that are mutual friends of ours. So I want to start with the show. So the show is called Creators Corner, right?
Yes. Yep.
But your channel is the Tech Buzz Gaming.
Correct.
Okay. So what was behind the decision to make Creators Corner like a little bit of a different brand idea? And is it specifically gaming focused, or is it just all creators?
So initially, I was a channel about tech and broadcasting back in the day. Hence the Tech Buzz, right? And then that just got oversaturated, and I just lost interest with it. And I was up near almost 100,000 subscribers, and I made the biggest mistake that anybody could have done. I rebranded my channel instead of starting a new channel. and I
I
started
have
the
no
gaming.
idea what that's like. I don't know what you're talking about.
I started the gaming one because I bought my first arcade one up, the Rampage cabinet, and my kids were, you know, they had never played the game. My kids were young back. I think it was like 2018 and end of 2018, early 2019. And well, that turned into now almost 30 cabinets later. But people were saying when I was posting little video clips up of my kids and I playing this, they were like, "Oh, you should do some content on it." I'm like, I really don't want to do that. Like, I just really didn't. But then, yeah, I started buying some more and more of them, and I was doing unboxings. I was doing, just having fun with it, and I started building an audience. So then I decided to rebrand my channel to the Tech Buzz Gaming. Now, to get to your question, I did a show for a long time, almost over 100 episodes, called the Retro Buzz, where myself and two other guys from the home arcade and toy community, we did that show. It was very successful. It was around
Okay.
the beginning of the home arcade, where everybody tuned into us because we had the information. We were working with the companies,
Some of the
getting
early
that
like
information.
one-up arcades, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were getting all that information. And then we all just decided that, maybe it's just the space, the home arcade space is just getting dry. There's a lot of stuff going on. So we're just, okay. One of the things I've always prided myself in, I felt like I did a very good interview. I felt like I interviewed people, and that was something I was good at. And so what I wanted to do is bring that to this space as I transitioned to the console space, because I didn't know a lot of the people in the console space. I didn't know a lot of the people in the retro gaming community. And I thought, man, what a great way to learn about these creators and find out about new creators than to do a show called Creators Corner. And that's kind of where the name idea came up with. And I bounced it off of Brandy, Gamer Aimer, as everybody knows her by.
Yeah.
I said, what do you think of this? 6 months prior to even launching it. And she's like, I like it. She's like, I like the idea of it. And I told her she would be the first guest. But it was really something that like I could give back to the community and be able to learn about the community, learn about the different creators in the community. And it started just as people in the gaming community, but I've had people branch out like yourself. You're a DJ, I've had people branch out that aren't sold out in the gaming community. And in fact, tomorrow night, I know this is going to be delayed, but I have Brian from BD Retro Mods coming on, where he makes controllers. So it's not just content creators; he's a creator in his own right, right?
Right.
So that's kind of where that came from. I just wanted to do a show where I could kind of give back to the community in a sense that I'm reliant on myself and only myself, and I may bring back one of the other shows, but for right now, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time doing it. So it's kind of, I don't know if I've ever looked at it as a brand within a brand, but I guess it could be, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, something you said there about enjoying yourself really holds a lot more weight than maybe people realize. And, with all of the content creators on the YouTube space that have been, considering moving on from YouTube or retiring from content creation, that kind of thing. Like, a lot of it is burnout. A lot of it is they're just not enjoying themselves anymore. Somebody very, very smart and a lot more famous than me once said, you only get one shot at life, so make sure you don't miss.
Yep.
You gotta do what you enjoy, or what's the heckin' point, right?
Yeah. But I can understand the burnout. I've been there. That's like with the tech and the broadcasting, I was kind of there. I was burnt out. And I don't know about you, even with, like you got to constantly be creating something new, or you feel like you're stagnant and you just kind of feel like it's just the same old, right? You're doing that same. It's like getting up and going to work every day, right? If you do a job that you hate, it's like, oh, here we go again. It just
Right.
becomes a chore. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be there in the content creation space. If that's the case, I'm not going to do it. That's kind of where I'm at with it. If I have to enjoy myself. It's not about becoming a celebrity. It's not becoming about, how many people are going to know me. It's about what I ask myself the question, would I do this for free?
Yeah.
Would I do these videos for free? And in essence, I am doing them for free, but if nobody watched it, let's put it that way. Yeah, I would do it because it's fun. That's where I'm at right now. That's the road that I'm on right now.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. I've struggled with that for years in my own entertainment career, just kind of like reaffirming with myself, is it about getting famous, or is it about having fun, or is it about providing service? And these are very real questions that, as an entertainer, as a content creator, you get to a certain point in your career where you have to start really evaluating these questions and thinking about how you would answer them.
Exactly.
I think that, I think that as a podcaster, my role, and maybe you feel similarly, but it sounds like maybe you do. I think my role as a podcaster is two things. One is to be able to provide a service in the form of content, in the form of a little bit of education. Not that I'm like talking down to people, but like, hey, check out this person that maybe you've never heard of, right? Like that kind of thing. But then also, my hope, especially with this show, is to build the community, especially around the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, whom I'm partnering with on this show, and whom I've worked very closely with for over a decade. So it's really important to me not to be famous, but to help sort of like consolidate the community and give people one more access point to go, you know what, I'm a part of this thing. Because I think that's where the real strength and the real power lies. Have you run into any kind of like real roadblocks or issues in building a community? It sounds like you originally had a pretty big channel, so there must have been a community that came along with that. What was your experience like switching over to this new channel and this sort of new direction, and how did your community respond to that?
Yeah, I did. I used to have a really big community where I couldn't even keep up with the chat half the time. It would just fly by and everything. And
Yeah.
when I, when I made the switch to come over to the home arcade space, there wasn't a lot of guys doing it, so it was easier, if you will, to build a community around that. And when I say I built the community around it, I had like at least 80 to about 120 people that, and to this day, they still follow the home arcade guys. They'll go from one content creator to the other. They just can't get enough of it. And those people would just go from one space to the other, to the other, to the other. It was easier because it was new to everybody. It was a niche area, and these guys they were just trying to consume. And especially since we were already working with some of those companies, because doing things like we're doing right now, live shows on the internet, you were on my show, and one of the things I pride myself is quality, right? I try to put on a quality show. It looks good. It sounds good. That's right. What I try to do. Now there's tools like what you're using that make that even easier. Well, 5 years ago, that wasn't necessarily the case, right? Like,
right.
You couldn't do that. And so when these companies saw this, they kind of got on board with us, and they were like, hey, we'll tell you about the new stuff that's coming. You guys deliver on your show. So we became like kind of the OGs, if you will. Like everybody tuned into us because they knew we were going to get some kind of information or have somebody from the company on. And I think that's what helps establish the community. But when I made the transition, I still do some stuff with the home arcade, not as much, because it just kind of burned out in me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to console, I found it really rough because the people that were following me and in my community were only interested in my home arcade videos or my home arcade live streams, whatever I was doing. Mm-hmm. When I started doing consoles, I watched my numbers like nosedive, like they tanked big time.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like when I started doing Creators Corner, I really started to, I feel like, really start building a good foundation of community members, because these guys were, I don't want to say buying into it, but they were like, yeah, this guy's about like bringing the community together to learn about each other. So I want to watch who he's interviewing. Like when you were on, like we had a bunch of people that were tuning in, like they never heard of you, but they were like, this guy's awesome. We want to listen to him. So I think that for me has been like the key to unlock the proverbial gate, so to speak, of building the community over here. But before, it was a struggle because I didn't know anybody, and it was tough. It really was tough.
I mean, your chat community was so much fun. You have a really, really great group of folks. Maybe a smaller community than what it was before, but definitely mighty. I mean, you had some fantastic personalities in there and people asking some really great questions. I had a really good time. So please, like, let them know just from me, like, how much I truly appreciated the energy they were bringing and what a good time it was.
Yeah.
But I want to know, because I ran into the same thing with this channel. It's my channel. DJ Switch PDX is me. Like, I am me. Right. I'm gonna make my content. Maybe it would be easier for me to just start over with a new channel and start from zero again. But I have my reasons why I want to make this channel work, and I don't think it's impossible. I think it's just you got to get over the hump, right? And so part of the reason why I stopped making the content that I used to make on this channel, even though I was okay at it and I was getting better at it and I was seeing some success from it, I had to pump the brakes because it became very apparent to me very quickly that when you make reaction content, the majority of the people that show up for your reaction content aren't there for you. And even though they're subscribing to you and even though they're like, leaving comments and stuff on your videos, you find out very quickly that if you do a different artist, for example, or a different type of music, they don't show up. I've had videos with tens, in a couple cases, close to 100,000 views. And then I cover, a Charlie Puth song that was like number 3 on the top 100 Billboard chart for the week. And it was like one of the biggest songs in the world. And I had 400 views. Like, yeah. It was really heartbreaking to see not the view count, because, view counts ebb and flow. They come and go. That's part of the business of creating on YouTube. Right. But what was heartbreaking to me was realizing, they don't care about me. They just care about me talking about their favorite band or their favorite whoever.
Yep.
And there were some exceptions. I met some fantastic folks that now are a part of my community. But the vast majority of those thousands and thousands and thousands of people were they were there for the one thing. And if you don't give them that one thing, you can just jump off a bridge.
I feel like that's how it was when I was doing a lot of broadcast content, because I had built my studio from scratch. I cobbled a lot of things together before I was getting sponsorships and people and companies sending me things to better my studio, so I didn't have to cobble it together. People were coming to find out how to do this stuff, and then they'd turn around and put together a curriculum based off the information I was given, and charging other people to go through their classes on how to broadcast or how to do this or how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So they were learning it for free from me, but turning around and selling it to other people. And I know quite a few people that did that, because when I got a hold of the curriculum, it was my PDFs. It was my information. I mean, they didn't even bother to change the pictures or even the words. It was my stuff. Right. And that's where I had 2 regular co-hosts that did the show. It was called Broadcast Now. And that was one of the only shows at the time doing broadcast tips and techniques and walking people how to do stuff. I sat down and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't come on here. And like you said, they don't care about me. They only care about what I can show them, how they can make money because of what I'm teaching them for free.
Right.
And I really believe that was kind of like the last nail in the coffin for me doing content in that space, because I felt like all the blood, sweat, and tears that I put into that to learn how to do that stuff, and people took advantage of it.
Yeah. That's such a great way to put it. People take advantage of you. They take advantage of your experience. They take advantage of, what can they get from you without the most bare minimum of returns. I know for me, it's like, all I'm asking you to do is like show up and hang out. It doesn't even cost anything. Like I literally cost you nothing but a click. And for a lot of folks, like even that is asking too much. And for those people, I've learned after years and years of working in the terrestrial entertainment world, DJing out in real life at nightclubs and trying to do like regular events and trying to do, like doing event organization and doing like event hosting and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to have casual folks pop in and out, but if everybody there is there because of what they can get out of you and they're not really there for you, it makes it impossible to stay motivated to keep that thing going as a creator, because we are human. We are humans with feelings, and I can tell you after 25 years of working in entertainment, like I'm so done with just being used and being told to dance like a monkey or just being the clown that's like, hey, look over here. Like, I'm not interested in that. I'm going to create what I want to create. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. I'm going to do my best to bring value and, try to keep the purpose in mind of like what we talked about at the top of the show, right? Like creating community, bringing value, like having a reason sort of beyond your own ego to do the things that you do. Because I could sit in my room and talk to an empty,
right.
Like I do that now,
Right.
But doing it on camera and doing it in a podcast format, the point of it is to build a community. And if the community wants nothing to do with you, they're just there for what they can take from you, then that's not really a community.
I think there's a lot of people that join certain people's communities. And I'm not saying we have that here in the retro game space or even the guys that are with me. In fact, I know a lot of my community members aren't like this, but in the past, I've seen this in communities that I've been in where certain people want to do what you're doing. They don't know how to do it. And then they start doing it. And then they beg and they want you to invite them on your show to give them validity. Like you almost are endorsed. You're laughing because you know what I'm talking about, because it's the truth. It's like you said it a little bit ago. They don't want to work to get to the point where they're recognized by other creators or, put into a space where, because let's face it, we're all people, right? It don't matter if you have 8,000 subscribers, 10,000, 20, it don't matter. We're all people doing our thing. But these other people, they want to get to the top with the minimal amount of work. So then they start friending these people that are like 600,000 subscribers and that, and get in to try to get validity from that person. And like I said, I've seen it in the other communities. I had people do that to me in the broadcast space to get validity. So companies would send them things and stuff. And it's like, just put in the work. Everybody that you see has to put in work. You didn't just rise to the top in what you're doing. You had to put in the work.
Dude, I work in hip hop, right? So like every bedroom MC that thinks that their song is the next biggest hit, as a DJ, they're like, people would throw their CDs at me in the club. Yo, man, play track 2. No, I'm not going to play whatever's on this. I'm going to take it home. I will give it a listen and decide if I like it. I never liked it. But I'd tell them, I'll take it home and give it a listen. I have a vinyl record on my shelf that is still sealed because it's some dude's independent project that he spent a bunch of money to have pressed to vinyl. And he walks it up to me. He's like, at the Retro Game Expo, of all places, the Portland Retro Game Expo. And he goes, yo, man, play my record. I cannot do that. There is no scenario under any circumstance where I would be able to do that. Like the answer is absolutely not. Like it just cannot happen that way. But people, like you said, they want that shortcut. They want to take advantage. And that's just sort of, it comes with the territory. It comes along with putting yourself out there as an entertainer, doing stuff in public and having to deal with the public. That's one part of the public that you have to deal with. So, like, believe me when I tell you, I get it. Boy, do I get it. But, you know, on the flip side, that's, you know, a small percentage. If I'm in the nightclub and I've got 1,000 people in the club and I've got one dude trying to, like, you know, shove his independent burned CD full of his bedroom hip hop tracks, you know, under the table to me or whatever, like, that's one person out of 1,000. So
right, sure.
we're talking about a very noisy minority, right? And in the case of creating online, what I found, and just to kind of like turn this the other direction, what I found is that if you're creating the stuff that you're passionate about, which we are, and you're doing it in a way that invites others rather than alienates others, you might not grow as fast right away, but the small community that you build will be very strong. And my community is incredibly strong. I love my community. And I mean that genuinely with a capital L. I love my community, and I am constantly being blown away just by the emotional support that they can bring to, you know, when I'm not feeling like I'm doing the right thing or whatever.
I think people need to get past that. It's all about me, because you're mightier with we.
Yeah.
So if everybody succeeds, it brings everybody up, and it makes that particular community, whatever it is, you fill in the blank, makes it more valuable to the communities, because you're pushing each other to be better. You're pushing each other to strive. You're pushing each other. If somebody's a little bit not to your level, you help them, you bring them up with you. I mean, that's kind of what I try to do. I try to, you know, anybody I was associated with, I mean, there's people like Brandy and other people that have more subscribers than me. They get it. You know, they're trying to elevate us and, you know, bring us up to that level and get us to that point, and constantly challenging us. Like, hey, did you put out your video? You need, you know, let's be more consistent. You want to grow. This is what you got to do. That's how community needs to be, where don't take the shortcut. Don't sit there and ride somebody's coattails. Do the work, put in the work. I think your response would be different to people giving you a record. If they said, hey man, can you take your established DJ? I've been following your career for 10 years. Can you take this home and listen? Don't play it here. Can you email me and let me know what you think? What do you like? What do you don't like? So I can go back and fix it. You're more likely to go back and listen to that record, because it says to you, this guy wants to work hard at being better. He knows he's not where he needs to be, but he's relying on my expertise to help him get better.
And that's a perfect analogy, because I've literally done that. I've literally had people come up and be like, hey man, I know you can't play this here, but would you take it home? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And
that's the right approach.
And I am happy to give it a listen and shoot off an email and be like, hey man, so here's what I'm thinking, you know, try this next time, try doing this, maybe adjust this, you know. I have had those kinds of interactions with folks. And I can tell you right now, I would take 100 of those any day of the week over one guy that's like, yo man, play my thing right now. No, that is not going to happen, buddy.
Because people don't realize, it's kind of like, take for instance, Mr. Right Way. Like, I did a podcast with him. He's got almost 40,000 subscribers. He could go on there. He could go on there every week and tell everybody, go subscribe to me, every minute of the whole podcast. Nobody's going to go subscribe to me. Why? He's got 40. He's got to have some kind of pull. If people don't like you, or you're not clicking with them, there's nothing any of these bigger artists, these bigger, creators, there's nothing that these guys can do to get somebody to follow you. You have to put the work in, and people don't get that. They think just getting an endorsement by, say, you, like, hey, this guy's got a really good record, you should play it. That other person's going to be like, well, that's great, but like, yeah, like, you know, he's got to do his due diligence. And I think if people finally get that, and just say, you know what, I'm glad this person wants to collaborate with me, I'm going to give it the best that I can. I'm going to go on this podcast expect to get nothing out of it, but I'm going to go on and have fun. We're going to talk about games. We're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about whatever the podcast is about, and we're going to have a great time. And let the chips fall where they may. Hopefully let people see that this guy's worth following. Yeah, I'm going to give him a follow, or I'm going to subscribe to him, or, I like this guy. I want to listen to him. So I'm going to check out his stuff.
Can you think of an example, in your experience in the retro gaming community and in the arcade community, can you think of an example that would be similar to like what I've experienced as a DJ? Because I mean, my thing is pretty like, kind of cut and dry, right? Like in the age of everybody making music in their bedroom, like if you're a DJ, like, and this is like, I don't know how many other DJs are listening to this, but like, if you're a DJ, you've had this happen to you. Like it's, if you've been a DJ for more than 5 minutes, someone has been like, yo man, play my thing. So like, I'm curious in your experience in the retro gaming side of things, if there's either an analog for that, like someone trying to get you to do something or trying to like take advantage of your position to like improve their own position or whatever. Or on the flip side, can you think of an example where, you were able to rely on the strength of your community within the gaming scene to fall back on having to sort of like, quote unquote, be the bad guy? Not that it makes you a bad guy, but like, maybe not allowing someone to push you around.
So there was, and I won't name the person because they've changed their ways now, but there was an individual.
Oh, come on, Steven, I want names.
No, I can't. There was, and people watch this and they're in the home arcade space, they're going to know exactly who I'm talking about. But there was a creator, and I won't even say who's all involved with the creator because then they're going to know exactly who it is too. Right. But he would go around every time somebody was live and be like, invite me on the show. You guys let me get up on the show. I need to come up on the show. He didn't do any content on his own. He didn't do any YouTube videos on his own. And all he saw was companies were sending us products for review, or they were giving us information that we could do videos on and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And again, taking the shortcut, and not that we were gatekeeping or trying to gatekeep, but we were trying to do the tough love thing. Like we kept telling him, like, dude, do your own content. It'll speak for itself and people will invite you on their show. They will see that you are serious about this, that you're not just like one of those guys that, hey, this looks like a good idea. I know nothing about the home arcade space. I know nothing about arcades, period. So I just want to be in the limelight. Like, do your homework, do your research.
Right.
Then after about, I want to say 6 to 8 months, he was putting in the time. He was doing his research. He was doing his due diligence, started his own show, bringing on different guests in the community. And you know what? To this day, he's doing pretty daggone good with the home arcade space, but he had to put in the time.
Yeah.
And he had to make himself work for it. And then those people that he was begging to come on the show started coming around like, hey, do you want to do a show? They asked him. He didn't have to beg them. And that's one main instance. The other part of the question you said where I had to be a bad guy?
Just, like if there was an example of, I think you kind of answered it where like, you had to sort of like, like you said, do the tough love thing. Bad guy is kind of a terrible, maybe a terrible phrase there, but doing the tough love thing, kind of like putting your foot down and being like, look, man, I can't do what you're asking me to do. And I don't think it's in your best interest anyway. Instead, try it this way. Yeah,
because we tried to explain to him too, like we lose credibility in the sense of, everything you've worked for is a reliable source for information. And then you bring on somebody that knows, it would be like, I've been out of the DJ scene for 15 years. It'd be like you doing a whole DJ podcast, being in the space, knowing the ins and outs, and bringing somebody like me on the show just because I'm a friend. I wouldn't do your brand any justice. And I would probably not give you a lot of credit to your audience because I've been out of the space for so long.
Yeah.
I don't know what's good and what's bad anymore. So that's all we were trying to say. Like, you got to understand there's more to this when you're starting to do analysis on things, whether it's sports, if you're doing a podcast on sports or you're doing it on arcades and retro gaming, right?
Yeah.
You have to have some kind of knowledge. You start talking about game, systems from the 80s. Well, you weren't born then in the 80s. Okay. Well, what do you know about the consoles in the 80s? Not really anything. So how can you be a retro gamer, right?
Right.
It's just things like that I think people miss, right? They just see that the big thing is they see you're getting stuff and they think that you're getting it for free. And it's like, you don't realize how much time you got to put in for reviews and work and
Yeah.
videos. And nothing in life is for free, and nothing's handed to you. You have to work for it.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. And it's funny that you bring up the whole like DJing content thing, because like I work with an outlet where I make a couple of videos every so often. It's not anything on the regular. They produce their own regular content. They have their own sales funnels and stuff for, selling DJ equipment to other DJs and things like that. Mm-hmm. I purposely made a choice when I started creating content for the internet, and I started just trying to decide like what did I want my channel to be. I specifically went out of my way to have the conversation with myself, like, do I want to be a DJ creating DJ stuff for other DJs? Or do I want to do what I know how to do, which is at a nightclub or at a party, I am not playing with the other DJs in the room in mind. Because if I'm doing that, oftentimes I'm just doing it for myself.
Right.
I need to be thinking about the other people at the party, right? Or the other people at the club. And so my approach to my YouTube channel has always been and will continue to be, I am not going to make this for DJs. As a DJ, it's my responsibility to make this for everyone else. And, I don't know if that is good advice or bad advice. What I know is I have not regretted that decision since I started making content years ago. It worked well for my decisions for the content I was creating in the mid 2000s. It worked well for my decisions for the content I was creating in the early 2010s. And when I started my YouTube channel in the late 2010s, I started it with this idea in mind that I was going to create content for everyone else and not just for myself. Because as we talked about, it's not just about me. It's not just about us. It's about them. I want to take a quick break. We gotta, pay a couple of bills.
Gotta pay the bill.
We gotta do an ad break real quick, and talk about our friends over at Vault 31 Bar. But we will have more with Steven from the Tech Buzz Gaming Channel when we come back. Folks, this episode has once again been sponsored by my friends at Vault 31 Bar. Just 10 minutes north of the Portland airport, Vault 31 is a video game themed bar built for absolutely everyone who loves gaming and geek culture. They offer an incredible selection of beverages and signature cocktails alongside tons of PC and console games available to play. And if you're hungry, they've got plenty of food available from their kitchen, including house-made pizzas, Smurshbergs, and all kinds of deliciously themed options. Anyone who's caught past episodes of this show knows that Vault 31 is all about inclusivity and wants to make sure that absolutely everyone is welcome. As part of their ongoing efforts to make sure they are a space for all gamers, they recently announced that they've purchased the space next door and will be renovating it into an all-ages coffee bar and lounge space so that even the under 21 folks will find safe harbor here. As if that wasn't enough, Vault 31 hosts all kinds of community events, including mini painting, tournaments, pride events, and is currently the home of my newest monthly lo-fi event, but you'll have to follow myself and Vault 31 on socials to find out more about that. Speaking of socials, you can visit them at vault31bar.com or at Vault31Bar on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and Twitch. Or honestly, just visit them in person. I promise there's no cryopods or vacuum cleaners with a human brain attached. If you know, you know. This place is freaking great. And if you're looking for a space that feels like home away from your nerd cave, Vault 31 is that place for me. Just tell them DJ Switch said hi. With that, let's get back to the show. Steven, I want to know a little bit more about your relationship with gaming. I know we talked a lot in the first half about being a content creator, but like you mentioned that you're creating a lot of content in the home arcade space. You're, talking to a lot of other like retro gaming content creators. When did you start gaming as a kid? Like, what was it that really made you like go, you know what? I'm really into this whole video gaming thing, and I think this is going to be what I do going
Well,
forward.
so I started back with the Atari 2600 and the Intellivision. My dad had those consoles, which I still have to this day. Anybody that's watched my videos,
Really?
they're on my shelf. Yeah, complete in box.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and one day when my dad passes, I'm sure that's going to be something that's sentimental that'll never leave my game room. But my brother brought it out, and that was the first experience that I ever had. And I think I was 7 years old. They bought us for Christmas the Nintendo Entertainment System with the Power Pad set, and because we wanted video games, right? And so, from that point on, I want to say till I got to the college age, that's all we did. We played video games, man. That's we lived and breathed it. Friends' houses, we played it.
Did you do the track and field thing where you were on the power pad just like trying to sprint in place and the whole thing?
Yep, 100%. We did that. It was great. It was great because the family got into it. My dad would play, my mom would play.
Right.
It came with the duck hunt. He loved playing that too. We played it. And once, just like most people, we didn't grow up with a lot of money, and so you only got video games maybe on your Christmas or birthday, and it was like a game. It's not like today's kids get a couple games for Christmas or something.
Right.
So I didn't really have the library of Nintendo, but then when I went to college, it's like everybody else, like that becomes your focus. You're saving your money for books that you have to pay for. You're putting yourself through college, It wasn't until I got married, my wife we went to my wife's house and her brother was playing Guitar Hero on the PlayStation 2. This is how long ago it was. And he was playing, I remember he played Bark at the Moon by Ozzy Osbourne. He played it backwards, not even looking at the TV, and he played it on expert.
Oh my God.
And I'm sitting there and I'm watching him play this game. And I remember my mother-in-law going, wow, it's good to see the money for college went to a good, because he said he learned it up in college playing. That's what they do. They play. So my wife went out because I had fun playing it. I am playing 3 buttons on easy, right? And she got me the PS2 for Christmas, I think, with Guitar Hero. And from that point on, I had bought a few systems. We had it, and then it wasn't until I got Rampage for the Arcade 1-Up that my kids were getting into it, and I wanted them to experience the games that you and I grew up with. And now that I have adult money, I started buying systems and games that I always wanted as a kid, but we didn't have the money to buy them. So I'm like, well, shoot, I'm going to buy them. And then just recently in the last 8 months, I started the journey to complete the whole North American collection for the NES, because like I said, that was the first system we had gotten as kids at Christmas time. So that kind of resonates a lot with me. It's like, I'm finding games, man, I didn't even know were on the Nintendo. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
To play them now, it takes me back. I'll sit down and I'll play, and I'll instantly feel like I'm sitting on my Graham's whole cold basement floor. She had carpet, but I remember like Sundays we go up for dinner and we sat down and played Nintendo down in the basement, or it instantly takes you back and you start to remember certain things that you didn't remember before. And for me, that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I had a split level growing up, and so it wasn't like a full basement, but it was like partially submerged. It was like a partial basement, like where it was so if you can imagine, like, your standard 8-foot ceiling,
right.
the window, like, within about 1.5 to 2 feet of the top of the ceiling was about level with the ground outside.
Okay.
So
yeah, I have a few of those in here. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's about what my quote unquote basement was in the house that I grew up in. And so, yeah, I had a similar kind of thing. It was carpeted, but man, it got cold down there. And I would just sit there just on my Amiga or I would sit there on my Genesis and just, for hours,
Yeah.
that was a big chunk of my childhood, man. So for you, it was more, you really dove deep once you got to a point where you were old enough to start collecting and start building a pretty serious collection, it sounds like.
Right. But there's more to that. So my son is going to be turning 12, and anytime school asks him, they're like, "What do you want to do? What do you want to be when you're older?" He always says a YouTuber because he always like he thinks what I do is being a YouTuber, because he sees them send you stuff and he sees that I work online and I work from home. So he wants to be a YouTuber. And so
oh no.
I know. But the cool part about that is because of getting invited to conventions and having the opportunity to go out there and use my skill in broadcasting to go to these conventions and do high quality broadcasts from there. It's really put him in a position where he gets to see and know what a YouTuber goes through.
Right.
And kind of see it firsthand, where other kids that say they want to be a YouTuber, they don't know the first thing. They don't know the amount of work that goes into it.
Right.
So a lot of what I'm doing now is to leave a legacy, is for one day, hopefully he takes over the brand and he runs with it. I'm so far past. I'll be 45 this year, and I'm so far past. I understand my time has sailed in a sense. Now I get it. Anything can happen. You can go viral. I get that, but
yeah,
my focus has kind of really been on like setting him up, so he can take over and run with something. And so the whole gaming aspect of it, that you asked, when did I know I wanted to do that? That was kind of when I knew that this was the space that I wanted to be in, because I knew how much it meant to him. And to see, like, when we would go out game hunting, he started collecting the whole Game Boy Advanced North American collection. Like, he's up to, I don't know, he's got a couple hundred of them right now, that he's been picking up. But he's learned to look at some of these, games that he shouldn't know anything about. And he's learned so much about them, what they're worth, how to look at certain things. He knows what systems they're for more than any other 11-year-old that you're going to find, because they didn't grow up with this stuff.
You know what's interesting about that perspective of having a kid who wants to be a YouTuber, but then being able to actually show them what it really takes to be a YouTuber?
Yeah.
You said something about feeling like you're past your prime, so to speak.
Yeah.
When it comes to creating online. And the thing about that is I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if I agree with that. And I'll tell you why. 5 years ago, my mother didn't really know how to send a text message. By the way, my mother's going to be 70 years old in 2 months.
Okay.
So for all intents and purposes, my 70-year-old mother could not send a text message 5 years ago. And now I'll call her and she'll go, "Why didn't you just text me?" Right?
Yeah.
In that, in that same sort of vein, I think that the YouTube audience is, if you look at the average age of the YouTube audience, I think it is getting older. I think that first of all, none of us are getting younger, right?
No,
but also I think more people from, older generations, not just like boomers and Gen X, but also I think more millennials are on YouTube now and adopting social media now than ever before. I think more people in general are sort of like accepting the norm, accepting the reality, and sort of coming around to the sort of digital lifestyle that a lot of us, digital forward people, nerds, gamers, tech geeks like you and me, like, we all adopted this stuff years ago. And so like, it's old to us, but there's so many people out there that are still discovering YouTube for the first time and discovering all of this stuff that you and I have been taking advantage of for, at this point, I'm going to make some assumptions about you, probably decades. Right?
Yeah. I've been doing, online broadcasting since 2008, I want to say.
And you were into the internet and you were into computers before
Oh
that,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. I was, because I was into tech. I was fixing and repairing computers. I had my own business on the side called PC Hospital that I was,
Nice.
I was repairing. I was working from home before we moved out to Western Pennsylvania at the time.
I think I played that game on the DS.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know. I guess the way I look at it is when I say I'm past my prime. I mean, I guess the way I see it is like you're going to hit a point where some kid is not going to watch some 50-year-old guy talk about video games, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm 1,000% wrong, and I could be.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of what's in the back of my mind. Could I do other things? Could I do more broadcasting related stuff? Absolutely.
I think there's an element of the sort of like common intergenerational warfare, for lack of a better term, that goes on. Like, there was a singer, whose name escapes me at the moment, but was talking about how, he was talking about how every generation blames the generation before them.
Right.
And I don't necessarily think that Gen Z or Gen Alpha are immune to that. But I also just had some friends of mine last week on this podcast that were talking about how Gen Z and Gen Alpha are far more accepting and open and communicative with each other than a lot of the generations before them. And the result of that is that people don't, a lot of younger people coming up behind us are less influenced by the superficial value of things.
Mm-hmm.
And just like like what we were talking about, like if you make content online that actually serves value and serves purpose, people will show up. And I think that when we have younger generations that have only ever known a world on YouTube and have never known the world without YouTube, that I don't think it's a matter of being old or young. I don't think it's a matter of necessarily even being pretty. Look at Jelly Roll, man. Dude's my size with face tattoos and just won Best Artist of the Year. Right. At the iHeart Music Awards. Like, guy's killing it right now. And he does not in any way fit the mold of what you would think of as a pop star.
That's true. That's a good point.
So, I point to someone like a Jelly Roll who's incredibly talented. And I go, you know what? If that dude can have that kind of career and have that kind of trajectory, that tells me that the world is far less influenced by the superficial than the world used to be. And that is good news for us old head tech nerds.
No, that's
that are trying to make it work,
That's a good point. I guess I never thought of it. I guess I never thought of it like that. I guess I look at a lot of kids today that want to do things and their parents are into stuff and they get their leg up on it, right? So like if you're into a certain demographic, like let's use actors for an example, right? Your dad or your mom's an actor, you grew up in Hollywood and you decide you want to be an actor, you already got your foot in the door, right? Because you grew up around the sets, the directors know who you are, and you have a better chance of getting into somebody like you or I getting in, right?
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at with helping my son do this, because I feel like I'm kind of giving him that advantage a little bit, like where I'm teaching him that you got to work hard to do this, but also like you've got an in the industry, right? You have an in with a lot of these people that are doing conventions and things like that. They're not going to forget. They're going to remember you growing up at the convention, right? Coming to them. And then when you're older and, you're in your 20s and you're doing content, they're going to bring you in because they know you. You've had that. And that's kind of what I want for him, to kind of help him into that space and not have to struggle like you or I had to do to get into our spaces, right? Where we had to work. And I think that's what every parent wants. My daughter's kind of taken a liking to the broadcast side. Like she does a lot with she helps me film my YouTube videos.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So I'm really like trying to help her in that space too, because there's value there. She could get a job doing that or go to college for it and make really good money. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's just been, I guess, my focus a lot is just what kind of legacy am I going to leave my kids? At least we have a digital portfolio online that kids can always go back and say, here's great grandpa. He was on talking about video games like 40 years ago. Here he is on YouTube, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird.
Geez, Dad, this video is only in 4K. Well, how am I supposed to watch this?
Right. Yeah, I wonder sometimes, but no, I mean, there's times there's times where people see like my game room tours. They'll see that like, oh, it must be nice to play video games all the time. And I'll be honest, like, I don't play video games much. I don't get time. Like Saturday nights when we have our game nights, I'll play, but there's just so much in the hunt and the chase for some of these games that I have a lot of fun doing that. Like, I really enjoy hunting these games down and trying to collect for them. My kids play the games more than I do. That's just being honest. I play the arcades. I'll play, when you have a job and a career, you don't have time to play video games 10 hours a day like some of these guys do. Like, I'm lucky if I get 5 hours a week to do it. Yeah. If I'm lucky.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our conversation, right? You're collecting what's nostalgic to you. You're collecting what you want to play, that you have time to play.
Right.
It's a tough world, man.
Yeah. For anybody that's just catching this, what Steven's referring to was when I was a guest on his show last week, we talked about how my collection is mostly autobiographical. I just collect what I play and what I enjoy. I don't worry about being a completionist in that sense, because there's a lot of other folks in my world that are already doing that. And so I think what I said was no one's counting on me to save video gaming.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did say that. Yeah, which is true.
But
you made me think with that one.
but you have called out a couple of times now that you're trying to complete the North American NES, and I think for you must have a different motivation for wanting to not only complete a full system, but specifically the NES. So that was one of the last things I wanted to talk to you about, was like, what is it about collecting for you that gives you value and makes you continue the pursuit? Like what brings you joy out of the process of collecting for a system like that?
I think it's, well, first of all, the NES was, like I said, one of my first systems I ever got. And so I think that's why the drive was there. And there's a lot of nostalgia. Games that are really, nostalgia, but there's a lot of games that are really tough to find. So I think the challenge that's there, and I'm one of those people that I don't let things beat me. I'm one of those guys that are gonna go at it and I'm gonna do it. And so I think the challenge is there, that I've already started a new challenge too, where I'm gonna do the SNES after I'm done with this, because again, this is stuff I never had as a kid. Call it a midlife crisis, call it whatever you want, but I sit there and I go, I really want to do this. I know I can do it. It's like when somebody says they want to hike the Oregon Trail and complete it, or they want to go to Mount Everest because they're into mountain climbing and they spend all that time training. They just want to do it just as a sense of accomplishment, not because I want to say like I've got a $30,000 NES set. I really don't care about the value. I want to do it for the completionist aspect of fulfilling a challenge because of the nostalgia behind it, because it was one of the first systems that I had. Would I do it for every other 66 other systems that I have? No, I'm not a museum. Like, I'm going to take your phrase. Nobody's counting on me to save video games, right?
Who are you, John Hancock? Come on.
Listen, yeah, I'm going to say Brandy too. Brandy's going to listen to, and there's nothing against what she does. There's nothing against what she does. That's if that's what she wants to do. But for me, I'm not going to go out and do that and buy every video game for every system. I'm just not going to do that.
Right.
But the drive right now is the nostalgia behind it, and the challenge of doing it and seeing how long it's going to take for me to complete it. That's the other thing, because there's games, as you probably know, that they're up there in price. So
yeah. As a matter
there's
of
a
fact,
challenge there.
it's funny. By the way, I see you wearing that Nintendo Switch hat, and I appreciate you doing that for me. They just announced the NES edition of the World Championship for the Nintendo Switch. And it's always funny to me whenever that game comes up in conversation. Because before the announcement this last week, the only time anyone talked about the World Championship for the NES was in the context of, how expensive have you seen it get? And like, have you ever been in a room with one? And have you ever seen one in person? And, by the way, the answer is yes to all those and $21,000.
Yeah, I have a repro. We play it all the time.
Yeah, I've seen it. It was under glass. Guy had a $21,000 plus price tag on it, and I was just like, too rich for my blood. 100%. Why he would just set it out there with a price tag on it is beyond me. But I know what he was doing. He was trying to attract people to his booth. Yeah. And it's, in some ways it's smart. In other ways, like, you have to hire somebody to keep an eye on that sucker. Because
it's probably the most valuable cart. Like, I have stadium events, which stadium events, for those that don't know, it's probably one of the most expensive games that you can get right now. Yeah. It's not complete. It's just a loose cart. I think they were telling me, Steve was telling me, it was like going for 21,000. Little Samson is like a $3,000. I have that complete in box. So those are two big heavy hitters, but there's still like Bonks. There's some other ones that are going for $800, $1,200. That I still have to pick up, and it's like, these are games that you just don't sneeze at, because you want to get the best quality of it, not just ones with like ripped labels, if you're going to spend that kind of money. So there's a challenge there.
One last question I want to ask you before we go. Anybody that's out there that's maybe looking to get into starting up a collection, kind of like what you're doing, do you have any advice for them or any suggestions or where to start?
Advice: don't do it. No, I'm just kidding.
Are you kidding though? Is it?
No.
Is it a joke? A
joke? I'm joking. I'm joking around. If you want to start a collection, the best advice I could give you is to check your local pawn shops, check your local Goodwills, Salvation Armies. A lot of the stores in there, my son and I, he'll tell you, we built most of the collection that I have in the other room with Xbox 360, PlayStation, all these games. We found a lot of great games, expensive games, and gotten them for like $1 or $2 a piece, because we've checked. Like, sometimes every other day you go to Goodwill or a pawn shop, because the pawn shop's they're just trying to get rid of it. And the more you buy, the cheaper it is. So if you go in there and you say the stack of 20 PS4 games, they might want $8 for it. But if you buy the whole stack, they might say $2 a game.
Yeah.
Those are where you go to. Don't go to GameStop. Don't go to these retro game stores. Go to yard sales. Go to your neighbors that and say, hey, do you have any video games from when your kids were younger? A lot of times, if you find servicemen, that their parents, they want to get rid of the stuff. They don't want it in the house. The servicemen don't want it. They'll give it to you dirt cheap. That's a great way to start a collection, and not overpay.
Flea markets,
100%.
Trade shows, and
yeah. Go to those before you go to the retro game. Retro game stores are great if you're looking for specific items of specific quality, right? If you're looking for a specific game.
I would add to that, actually, even if you're not looking for something specific and you just want to do some browsing, get an idea for what's out there, or God forbid you actually are looking for something to play, not just collect. Right? That's what retro game stores really are for, is those one-off things, but also like, let's not forget that we all fell in love with this whole video gaming thing because we were playing them too.
Exactly. And Facebook Marketplace is another great. And listen, when you buy bundles, don't be afraid if there's doubles in there. I get doubles and duplicates, triples, even extra. I bought a bundle at a yard sale. It was a 32 Sega Genesis games, the Sega Genesis Model 2, 4 controllers, all the hookups, and they wanted $15 for it.
Jeez.
I had well over $300 in value in the games, but I took the duplicate games and the Sega Genesis, and I was able to trade it for a Nintendo games that I needed. So that's a way that you can build your collection too. Take some of those systems, look at the value, give somebody else a deal, but in the same respect, they're going to hook you up with games or something that you need on if you're going for a complete set or if you're looking for a specific game.
Yeah.
That's what I do a lot. I do that a lot of times.
Yeah. You know, if ever there was a console that I wanted to collect for, the Nintendo Switch was it. And
good luck with that one.
Well, that's the thing, man. There's a lot of Switch games out there in the world, and there's a lot of, you know, and the Switch is still an active console. So like people's collections aren't necessarily hitting the secondhand market in full force yet. There's a lot of folks that are selling, but I've even seen, you know, I've seen examples. You know, there's a guy on Facebook Marketplace where I'm at that was, you know, maybe like an hour south of me, and was, you know, asking $2,000 for a Switch game collection that was easily worth twice that. And so there are deals to be had out there. If I had a, you know, I even straight up asked my wife, I was like, hey, do we have an extra $2,000? And like the responsible adult that she is, she goes, no, shut up.
What would you do with that though? Because there's almost like officially, I believe there's almost 11,000 Switch games in the original collection. That's not counting like limited run.
Yeah.
That's not counting any. Where would you put that? 11,000 games.
So that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking.
I'm interviewing you on this.
I will never collect a complete Switch collection, and I am well aware of that. I want to build a good Switch collection, and I want to continue to enjoy that console well past its life, which you know, as we all know, is coming. Yeah. It's coming soon. Yeah. You know, a lot of rumors, a lot of bubbling. Even Nintendo has said that they're going to be announcing the successor very soon for the Switch. They're sort of like everyone's tentatively calling it the Switch 2.
Yeah.
I really hope it's backwards compatible with the Switch. That would be amazing, because the library for the Switch will continue to flourish in that case. And you know, they did it with the Wii U. They've done it quite a bit with the handhelds in the past. They had how many different iterations of the DS that were all somewhat backwards compatible with each other. And so I'm hoping that whatever the next console is from Nintendo, that it's backwards compatible with the Switch. That would make me a very, very happy boy. But we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, we've come to the end of the show. And so I definitely want to ask you before we go, is there any specific place that you want to plug, any place people can find you online that you want to shout out?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So pretty much you can find me anywhere if you just search the Tech Buzz, all one word, but a lot of my branding, like my website, ttbgaming.com, and YouTube, youtube.com/the Tech Buzz. You can pretty much find everything that you probably ever want to know or need to know. Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at.
Awesome. Well, Steven from the Tech Buzz, thank you very, very much for hanging out with me today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
My biggest thank you to Steven from the Tech Buzz Gaming for stopping by and hanging out with me today. Of course, thanks to all of you for making it this far into the podcast. I truly appreciate you. If you want even more content, of course, you can find me at patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX. And I would strongly recommend subscribing to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet. I have a brand new series that I have not really talked about yet. And it's in the works. I've already recorded the first 2 videos, and I'm hoping to release them very soon. I'm going to be doing a series of video game YouTube videos called Never Have I Ever. And it's going to be video games that I've never played before. And in honor of their anniversary this year, I'm starting with Minecraft. So I had never played Minecraft before. I literally played for the very first time on camera. And spoiler alert, after the first video, I wasn't sure if I was going to make a second one. But I do have a second one recorded. So I'm going to be releasing those as soon as I possibly can. I just have to find the time to sit down, edit, and polish those up so that I can put them out into the world. So you'll be seeing those very, very soon from me. Aside from all of that, of course, I want to give a big thank you to my friends at Vault 31 Bar for helping me continue to produce this podcast and pay for some of the tools that I use to be able to create this content, as well as my friends at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, as always, for being such wonderful partners in this particular venture, the podcast that I'm trying to get off the ground. One last thing that I wanted to put out to all of you, and I've never really, I don't think I've really said this so directly before on the show, but you know, we're 18 episodes in. I think it's probably time. If you would please do me a favor, if you enjoyed this show, or if you enjoyed any of the other episodes of the podcast that I've done so far, it really helps if you leave a comment, and it really, really helps if you share it with a friend, or maybe share it with some folks on social media. Just say, hey, you know, this guy, DJ Switch, he's doing a thing that I like, and I think you might like it too. That kind of sharing and that kind of endorsement from real people like yourselves that enjoy this stuff that I'm creating, that's I think the biggest thing that we can do to continue to grow and build this community of gamers and nerds that are, you know, we are doing the things that we do because of the things that we love, and we love being around the other people like ourselves that love the things that we do. So that's the whole goal of all of this. And that was kind of the point of the conversation today with Steven, I think, was that, you know, as creators, especially as veteran creators, Steven and I are both very, very aware that it's about building community and it's about bringing people together. And I hope that this podcast is one of the avenues that I can use to be able to do that. That's really my goal here. It's never about fame. It's never about money. It is entirely about community and entirely about building a circle of people who love to just be nerds together. So I hope that you feel the same way. I hope that you'll consider sharing this with someone. And I hope that you'll join me again next week for another episode of Pick Up and Play. Thanks.